had to go check it out for purposes of this new show, which is going to be a different format, a different setup.
Great. I want to talk about that, but I'm doing I anchor the 5 o'clock news every day, but I do like a technology piece. And so actually in about 40 minutes, Indianapolis will be treated to you, like file footage of you.
What, over the phone or?
No. Like a piece I put together yesterday using file stuff, and tomorrow it's this.
Oh, so you're driving back to Indianapolis?
Doing it the hard way.
God,
you're flying.
I'm confused. I was thinking, what are you going to uplink in the parking lot?
Finding a parking space in the van is tough enough. Satellite truck. Well, Todd, for starters, you have essentially invented this process. We talked a couple of years ago, and you were talking about creating a fishbowl where you can kind of float around and spend some time. And now we're to the point where you've got the fishbowl to live in.
Yeah, more or less living in a fishbowl now. Yeah, at the time I didn't know exactly how we were going to pull it off, but through perspicacity and the input of my programming partner, who managed to pull off what might be considered a technical feat, at least in the realm of CDI, the platform we're working in, we finally do have the working product.
What's involved in writing a song for CDI versus writing a song for Second Wind, your last album?
Well, you have to be aware of the fact it's going to be cut up and rearranged later, so it affects principally the lyrics. You don't tell stories anymore. I don't know if I ever did tell stories, but most of the lyrics have to have this sort of declarative quality, as an observation about something or a statement of some kind, but the idea has to be completed in like a 4-bar chunk, and then the themes sort of accumulate their meaning by having the various verses and choruses all juxtaposed in different ways. And when you put B after A, it may mean something different than if you put A after B. So in one sense, you can look at it as you don't have the same sort of control over the overall process in terms of what order people hear the lyrics in. But then again, you have to open up the possibility that there are other levels of meaning that can't be reached by putting everything always in the same order.
I realize it's very simple to use, your program, and at the same time, though, the average American has trouble programming a VCR. Do you think people are ready for this?
Well, this is a question that I get a lot, because I think there's a lot of apprehension about what interactivity means and what the audience's responsibilities might be. What do they have to learn? And, my personal approach is that a continuum of interactivity has to be supported. In other words, people have to be able to be totally passive, the way that they are now with non-interactive experiences like broadcast television and regular CDs. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, the 14-year-old Game Boy addict, who's always diddling the joystick and pressing the buttons constantly. So you have to be able to support that entire range of interactivity. And this essentially does that. If you just put it in and don't do anything else, it'll behave like a non-interactive CD. It'll play the same contents that are on the linear CD. But if you start to talk to the disc in a manner of speaking, it will respond to you more or less immediately and reinvent the record on the fly. And you can do this as often or as little as you want. And the results of all that can be stored in a little area of non-volatile memory so that you can recall them later. So you could have setups for specific situations that you might want to listen to music in. Like you might have party settings, that'll make sure that the music is always fast and danceable, and you might have some kind of a dinner setting where it's subdued and maybe there's no vocals, just instrumental music, and any variety of versions in between.
So could you have Paper Broke play for the next 3 years if you wanted to, essentially?
It would play as long as you had the power flowing into it. It would just continue to play. it starts with a reference point, you know, a series of musical events that represent verses and choruses and things like that, and then you sort of overlay these modifications you want to happen to that, you know, that concern the quality of the mix and the tempo and the mood of the music and even the direction through the list of events, so that you could theoretically listen to an album from the end to the beginning, as well as from the beginning to the end. I forgot the question.
Let me shoot another one at you.
Okay.
You're a renowned producer. Are you hearing from other bands already who want you to make them interactive too?
There are some people interested in it, although since this has not hit the shelves yet, for most people they have to go on some preconception that they have, which is usually wrong. I think very soon, probably within not exactly when I finish this little promo tour, but probably shortly after that, when we've had an opportunity to have it videotaped and covered to death by the press, people will have a greater understanding. But when the disc actually comes out and is in the stores and you can go in and play with it and see what the effect is, I think then people will start to form their own opinions, get a more accurate reflection of not just the technical side of it, but what the experience is like, which to me is the important thing and the thing you can't describe.
And that's what music's all about, is the experience. And then to a lot of us, it's an experience that's been lost in the last 10 years because a lot of music is just slush. But you are the only game in town right now in terms of producing interactive music, so that would seem to put you at the top of the hill. Obviously, there are people who are trying to catch up.
Well, they have this old saying about the pioneers are the ones with the arrows in their backs. And if this is a good idea, then a lot of people will be copying it or doing their own take on it. And if it's a bad idea, then it'll just be one of those things. But my approach to it at this point is that we're just starting out. There is a certain degree of tolerance that we have to have all around in terms of people's expectations about what I'm doing, my expectations about how people will experience and judge it. But perseverance is going to be the thing that puts it over. Seeing what works and what doesn't work in the present implementation and being prepared to improve it as time goes on. And then also adapting to new, more efficient platforms that can give us better graphics and can cram more music onto the disc and can react more quickly to the input from the user. And basically keeping in mind that we are in a very pioneering phase right here. We're not trying to say this is the new standard, everyone just accept it, you know. But someone has to make the move. Someone has to say, if there is going to be such a thing as interactive music, someone has to decide to actually do it.
I think somebody's broken in the store.
Someone's broken. Oh, they're stealing records off the shelves. And...
Todd, what will the tour be like? And when do you hope to kick it off?
Okay. The tour, if all goes as planned, or as we speculate right now, I'll be hitting the road beginning of October, do a few dates up and down the West Coast, and then go to Japan for 2 weeks, and then fly back to the East Coast and start moving west from there. So we'll be in the Midwest sometime in November, probably.
Will people actually be able to control the experience?
There'll be some, there will be some input from the audience, although I haven't exactly determined what it is they'll be controlling and the degree to which that'll be direct control or whether it'll be sort of filtered through me. There are some, again, people's images of what they think will happen and what is practical or most pleasant to experience is often different than that. What would it be like if someone who's completely unfamiliar with where you're trying to go with something suddenly has some control over it? You know, like they can start muting instruments out or turning the lights on and off, things like that. It's some of it can just break down into total chaos, And also, I think that people come to a live performance to find out what it is that the artist does. They don't pay the ridiculous prices that it costs to go to a show nowadays to watch other people in the audience goof around. So I think for the most part there will be a lot of interactivity, but it'll be me being interactive. In other words, the show will be different every night, and we'll take a path that I probably will not foresee before the show actually begins. And at certain points during the course of the presentation, I will probably solicit input from the audience in one way or another.
Will you have a band?
There won't be a band this time. Bands take up so much room, for one thing, and I'm setting up in I'll be setting up in the rounds. And just about every venue I'll be in will be in the rounds. That's part of the interactivity. People can view it from various angles and get their own perspective. And also, unlike most of my other concerts, which were usually sort of sit down and listen things, this is going to be a concert that encourages movement of various kinds. Dancing, there'll be little installations around the venue, like to demonstrate the CDI or to demonstrate other technological things that may have something to do with my presentation. And smart drink bar, I don't know, the various other kinds of full media accoutrements to the show.
One final question before we get a couple of shots here. There are a lot of machines out there battling for to not become the Jurassic Park of the computer set or the CDI set. I know that 3DO's got a machine coming out. And
Yeah.
Pioneer's got a Laserdisc CDI coming out.
Yeah.
It seems, though, that we're heading toward the stage, and it's going to come in the next 5 or 6 years, where your computer, your TV set, your stereo, your CD player are all one machine.
Exactly. I think that consumers are probably not aware of this, but everyone on this side of the window is fully cognizant of the fact that that computers have sort of peaked, and that TV is reaching this sort of point of saturation where you can't deal with it without some assistance, without some intelligence that can help you get through everything. If they're going to have 500 channels of television, how are you going to sort through it all? How are you going to find the things that you want to look at without having to go through every other home shopping channel, and a televangelist, to get to the things that you want? So computers will migrate into the television set. Music will be delivered through the television set, as well as video and movies and educational presentations that may involve sound and pictures and text and various other things. You'll do a lot of your interactions with the bank or the grocery store or various retail outlets that you normally leave your house to go to, even record stores, like this one.
Well, what fascinates me about reviews I've read of your record is that they never mention it's interactive. And most of the people who review your record just put it on and they think it's a CD, and they can't figure out why it's jumping all over the place.
Well, there's two versions of it, but the non-interactive one does reflect the approach that working from an interactive database can affect. The idea that the traditional form of songs becomes more plastic, and you can reorder the events in certain ways. You can shorten the events a lot. For instance, there might be 3 versions of a particular song, and the first time you hear, you only hear maybe a verse of it. And the next time you hear like a verse and a bridge and a chorus, and then the next time you hear it, you get the guitar solos and the write out and all of this other stuff. So the working out of a musical database affects not only the interactive products, but the non-interactive ones as well.
all the Hiroshi Takano CDs, which you did not produce, but it's called September Dream, and it sounds like something you wrote. It sounds like you're playing guitar too.
I've heard some of his earlier ones. I think I got involved probably like his second CD.
I'm thinking that's
in the deli, right?
No, it wasn't in the deli. It was in Delhi. I also have to ask you, as a fan, because I hate when people write things about people, because I know being in the media, people write things.
Let's see where that song came from. When the Raspberries were recording our first album, we were at the record plant studio. What song is that? I Want to Be With You.
I Want to Be With You, yeah.
Okay. COP, and Ty Rundgren was Studio A. We had 2 songs left to mix one day, and Ty came by and stuck his head in the door, and we happened to be mixing the song I Saw the Light. Ty listened for a couple of minutes, and then he left, and then the last song we had to mix that day was called I Can Remember. Ty came back and stuck his head in the door, listened again, and walked away. I don't remember any of this, but...
I figured you wouldn't, but I thought if you...
I don't know, maybe I didn't know who it was in the studio.
But he's essentially saying, I think, that your songs wouldn't have made any difference, and I saw the light from them, which to me is ludicrous.
That's bullshit. First of all,
what I'd like to do is look.
by the time I got to the record plant, I had recorded all of the album already on the West Coast. Actually, Anything was all done on the West Coast, and I just did some mixing in New York. So, sorry guys, it was all done by the time you started recording yours.
Well, do you mind if I might?
It didn't really sound like I had some similar things going. The next song had this keyboard exactly as I can remember. The first line that you remember, I thought, thievery. So he decided to get his revenge.
Yeah.
Only by listening to XRT will they hear that particular version. Right.
But if they go out and buy the CDI version that comes out next month, they could make it
all this and more.
All that and more.
Well, you know, the little catchphrase we came up with was, buy one CD, get a million free.
A million free.
But of course, you have to own a CDI player in order to do that, so I would recommend that people go out and get the regular album just to become familiar with what's going on.
So now tell me a little about the songwriting for this album. I mean, you must have had the end product, the rearrangeability in mind when you were writing the songs. Did that affect the kind of music you could use, or was one kind of music easier than another kind?
Well, it does, yeah, it certainly does at this point, particularly because I'm working with some sort of technological limitations. In the future, it'll be possible to do things like mix sound on the fly, but right now, essentially, we're doing the equivalent of splicing tape electronically. You know, we play a little piece and then another little piece, another piece after that. But yeah, when you're writing, you can't really sort of tell stories. You know, you can't write, you know, fateful night a car was stalled upon the railroad track, you know, and that kind of thing where it all builds up to an ending or a statement or a climax. It's got to be a sort of a series of observations or declarations, and the accumulated meaning comes out differently depending on what order you hear these things in, or which ones you actually hear. You know, in some cases you may only hear some subset of the lyrics go by. So it's There's a lot of different concepts inside this whole.
It's fascinating. It's just fascinating, and I can imagine with sitting down with the CDI player, you could just play with it forever and come up with new things. I wonder what's is the next step no musician at all, or is the next step all acoustic instruments on 12-inch vinyl?
Well, there could be a totally reactionary type of step, but this all has to do with